Okay, today we are going to write a cubic function given a graph. Well, the first thing we want to make sure we remember is the formula for what a cubic function should look like when we are all done. And basically it should be in the form y equals a times x minus h, times x minus j, and x minus k. So if you notice, since it's a cubic function, we have three factors being multiplied together. And in this case also h, j, and k are all the x-intercepts. So h, j, and k are all the x-intercepts. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to look at a graph. And this example on this page is just going through the steps. Nothing that you have to do. We're just going to talk about what is actually going on. So to write a cubic function, there's that formula up there again, up here. F of x equals a times x minus h times x minus j times x minus m. Well, I think I called it k on the last slide, but same idea. And it says, step 1, use the three x-intercepts, or the zeros, on the graph to write the function in factored form. So if you notice, our three x-intercepts in this case are -4, +1, and +3. Those are the three places where the graph crosses the x-axis. So if you notice, then when we go to write that, we are going to write it as x, that -4 becomes the x plus 4. That 1, 0 point right there becomes your x minus 1, and then 3 right here becomes your x minus 3. Because remember, when we write it in factored form like that, it's always the opposite sign. So being -4 would be x plus 4, +1 would be -1, and +3 would be -3. And then it says step 2 wants you to find the value of a by substituting the coordinates of another point on the graph. So if you notice, not only does it have the three ordered pairs of the x-intercepts, but it also has another ordered pair. So if you look right here, this other ordered pair, I should probably not put that in green. Let's pick a different color here. Let's highlight it in blue. That 0, -6 is another ordered pair. And another ordered pair, any ordered pair, is x, y. So we know we would have an x and a y. So what we do is we take, and instead of y, we're going to put -6. So instead of f of x right here, we're going to put -6. And instead of x in all of these three places, we're going to put our x value, which is 0. Because the ordered pair of another point on the graph is 0, -6. So anywhere that we see an x in that little formula, we're going to put 0. Anywhere we see a y, we're going to put -6. And then all we do is we evaluate those values. So I have 0 plus 4 is 4. 0 minus 1 is -1. 0 minus 3 is -3. And when I multiply those together, I get +12. So I have -6 equals 12 times a. And when I divide by 12, I get a is -1/2. So then we take that information, and we know that our a value is -1/2. And then we have those same three x-intercepts that we use as our three factors. So our final answer is -1/2 times x plus 4 times x minus 1 times x minus 3. And you don't have to multiply that out. So let's take a look at one of these here, at an example. And I have three places where it crosses the x-axis. It crosses the x-axis at -1, it crosses it at +1, and it crosses it at +2. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to write our formula out with just those 3 points. So our first step is going to be, I'm going to call, instead of f of x, I'm going to call it y. Y equals, well, if it crosses at -1, we'd have x plus 1 If it crosses at positive 1, we'd have x minus 1. And if it crosses at 2, we'd have x minus 2. And don't forget that we always have to, erase here really quick, we have that a value that we're going to put out in front. So I'm going to go back and rewrite that in there like that. So if I have y equals a times all of that. Well, the other ordered pair that we know, oops, struggling with my pens today. The other ordered pair that we know is at 0, 2, which means our x value is 0, our y value is 2. So I'm going to go back into my formula over here, and instead of y, I'm going to put 2. I still don't know what a is, but I know anywhere that there's an x, I'm going to put 0 in its place. So I'd have 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 1 times 0 minus 2. So I have 2 equals a times 1 times negative 1 times negative 2. And 1 times negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2, so I have 2 equals positive 2 times a. If I divide by 2 on both sides, I get a equals 1. So when I go to write my final answer, I'm just going to put 1 in for a. So I'd have y equals 1 times x plus 1, x minus 1, x minus 2. And there would be our final answer. Okay, so let's just look real quick here at one more example. Okay, I have zeros at -5. I've also got a 0. This 1 0 goes with this. It's kind of hard to see the line, but there's a line pointing from that 1 0 to right here. So that's another 0 is at 1 0. And then my third 0 is at 4 0. I know those are my zeros because it's the y value is 0. So I know that that's the 3 points that I need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write those as an equation. So I'm going to have y equals a times, and I'm going to write my 3 factors. Since one of them is -5, I'm going to have x plus 5. Then I've got positive 1, so I'm going to have x minus 1. Then I've got positive 4, so I'm going to have x minus 4. And then my other ordered pair that's on here is positive 2, negative 2, which means my x value is 2, my y value is -2. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to substitute. Anywhere I see y, I'm going to put -2. That's this -2 right here. I'm going to put -2 equals a, because that's what I'm still trying to find. And anywhere there's an x, I'm going to put that positive 2. So I'm going to have 2 plus 5, 2 minus 1, 2 minus 4. And then if I go ahead and evaluate those, I have -2 equals a times 7 times 1 times -2. Then I've got -2 equals, well, if I multiply 7 times 1 times -2, I get -14. So I get -14a. If I divide by -14, I get that a equals 1/7. So my final answer is not just what a is. I have to go back and put a into my formula. So I have y equals 1/7 times x plus 5, x minus 1, and x minus 4. Make that look more like a 7. There we go. And that is our final answer on how we write a cubic function. The last thing to do is there is a short homework assignment in Big Ideas that needs to be completed. It's only 4 questions, so it should not take you very long. And make sure you get that done and submitted.